Body-Culinary with a garden and a lock update. So, as far as the garden, I'm still learning and growing all the time in the garden, in my little teeny garden. And I do want to really let people know that I started in a small New York City apartment. So I've been over 3 decades on a natural living journey. So my crown has been natural for about 3 decades. Um, yeah. So, and I started out with a lot of recycled containers inside of a small New York City apartment. I've always been very determined to grow some of my own food. So, in the food prep area, today I have some lentil sprouts that are growing pretty good in a jar, right? So that's one less thing you need to buy. And I also have some mung bean sprouts. So these sprout very quickly. So that's just an example of something that's very, very inexpensive. It's super high in protein without the clogging cholesterol and fat. So I can season those. They cost pennies per pound, right? Also, something else going on here is the other day, or maybe like a week or so ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, I planted some celery, but the seeds didn't burst, right? So I like to say that in the garden, the food talks to you in the garden, the plants are talking to you. So if they didn't sprout, it's either because the seeds are old, or when I went to do some research, celery grows easily, but it's very challenging for the seeds to germinate. So I'm trying, again, another batch of celery seeds. So here I have them soaking so they can sprout. So all seeds sprout differently. Some grow a tail, like the sprouts I just showed you, and some do not. So something else going on in the food prep area, this is rosemary. It's really, really potent. So this was dried rosemary. And what I did is I ground it up inside of NutriBullet. So you can grind it either in a spice grinder or a NutriBullet, or if you have a Vitamix. But the spice grinder is really, really inexpensive, or a coffee grinder. And then I'll make a tea of it. I can put it in the sun and make a sun tea. If you boil things, you can boil them, but I make a sun tea because it's warm here. And that's what I used to rinse my hair yesterday. So my locks are about, I guess, going on 3 years old. So I'm finally starting to see some length. Some of them are very tiny. If you were to see them in person, like some of them are really tiny. And things that made them tinier was twisting. Really, really compress the locks, and my hair is already what some people call a 4C, but it's really, really fine and delicate. It pops and breaks off very easily, and any kind of pulling creates pain and discomfort. So my hair can't take a whole lot of pulling, and so thus I don't want to have a lot of product weighing my hair down, so I can preserve my hairline. Although I'm very comfortable wearing a really little, super, super low cut, I want to let it grow out, right? I'm really feeling very lionessy, right, with my fine locks. So I'm finding that semi-freeform, and that my hair has been twisted in ages, but some of them are combined. So these two little ones are combined, and they're growing. Everything is growing in flat. So I'm in full acceptance of that. I'm not trying to make my hair do anything that it doesn't want to do. I have, yeah, whatever grades are coming in, I'm not dyeing, I'm not cutting, I'm not doing any of that stuff. So however it comes in, it's coming in. I don't even know what the back looks like because I can never see the back. So I'm just accepting. You know, I would have loved those big chunky locks, but this is what is growing divinely out of my head. I'm in full acceptance and celebration of it. So they're going on about 3 years. There have been some little ones that were hanging off, and I'm sure at some point a lot of these may break off because they are so fine and thin. So I've allowed them to join, so you can see they're all going to come in flat because it's not very dense. So as far as the garden, I went out to plant today, and so now I'm seeing different things to plant together. So I'm just decided that in one area, sunflowers grow really easily. So I'm going to grow some sunflowers, and we've grown okra and harvested the okra several times, so that needs to be turned over. But the okra can grow really tall. So I'm going to grow some sunflower, some beautiful sunflowers, and I actually have some mammoth sunflower seeds. So those can grow really, really, really huge. And the last time we grew sunflowers, I was actually able, I was surprised to be able to actually harvest sunflowers to eat. So also sesame seeds, we've grown several times, and groundnuts or peanuts. So those I'm going to grow into one area. I think I'm going to combine some okra and sunflower. I think it will be very attractive together, and they both grow really tall. And the front of my little teeny gardening area, it looks so very bare. I think it can serve two purposes. I'm also going to take some bags and try growing in some different types of bags. I'm always looking to see what I'm eating or consuming in the food prep area, and those are things I want to grow. So I have some ginger growing, but I want to grow some more turmeric and some ginger. So it's great to have those things fresh. I have some tomatoes coming. They're not bearing fruit, but the plants are doing really well. So they need some stakes around them. I think I mentioned that the celery, this didn't bust the first time, so this I have sprouting, right? So as I researched, they're challenging to germinate, but once they germinate and sprout, they should be easier to grow. So some seeds that I have saved to grow are lychee and mamey and soursop. So just from the fruit that I ate, I saved those. So those I'm going to, well, actually, I just put them in. Now, bugs did go into, and I saw it ate out a lot of the inside of the seed. So I'm constantly learning that the insects are always going to take their portion too. Everybody in nature wants to eat. I have a pineapple bush that's doing really good, and so the pineapple grows on top, actually, of the bush. So the area where I initially planted the pineapple wasn't too deep, so it sprouted, but never. The plants have an intelligence, so it stopped growing because there wasn't enough dirt. It wasn't deep enough for the pineapple to grow. So I have a couple of others in the area where the dirt's a little deeper. The bush looks like it's expanding and growing. So I'm going to be so excited if the actual pineapple does grow. So yeah, so YouTube has so much information. I'm always saying that in this day and age, we can just zone out on social media, or we have access to so much education. So I'll usually try to grow something. I'll research it. I'll try it out, and then I'll go in and I'll try it again. So this is my second go around with the pineapple. And now, so I'm seeing the tomatoes that are coming up, and also these green beans that are growing. They need a trellis, right? Because hey, greetings. So I hope the signal is coming in well, because it's rainy season in Central America. So sometimes when I do a live, it sounds it kind of like it doesn't come out clear. So hopefully you can hear and you can see. And then I didn't have enough memory on my device, so I decided to go live, so I won't be able to edit it. So I do have the peas coming up, and the tomato plants, which I found are they're very temperamental. And I'm finding, right, as I say, like food and the plants, they talk to you. They give you information because you're interacting with them. They are very temperamental. So as I go from plant to plant, I find that they grow different depending on, oh, great, that's fantastic. So I find that the plants grow differently depending on where I put them, and depending on how much sunlight is hitting the plant. They'll grow differently depending on how much space I'm putting in between the plants. I'm growing a lot more things in bags this time around. So usually I'll take any kind of container, whether it's a bleach container or a water bottle, and I'll cut them because I don't feel it feels very wasteful to just be wasting plastic. And I do make an effort to use recycled bags when I go to the market. So I'm taking the recycled bleach bottles, the water bottles, and I'm cutting them and I'm putting dirt into them to use those as planters. And I'll take a knife and put holes down at the bottom so there's some drainage. So I take the mushroom containers and I recycle those so that I can use those. But it's so much different information. To me, it's so stimulating inside the garden. So I'll use the containers because if you're not familiar with a lot of the plants, sometimes when they're growing, you can't tell if they're weeds or not, and you may be plucking. It takes a long time for the plant to grow, and you may be plucking and discarding something that's actually the plant for you to eat. Because a lot of the plants may look similar when they're babies, but when they start to grow out, you'll see that it's like babies being born. You'll see that the shape of the leaf changes, like with cilantro, also like with watermelon and squash. They look very similar to each other, but then the leaves start to change shape as they mature, as they go from like infants to toddlers. So that's pretty exciting. I don't know if I'm the only person that gets excited by stuff like this, but it's like babies being born. So some other things that I have inside the garden are, I don't like to throw anything away. So you know how sometimes you may have some onions or scallions or something that's not quite the freshest. Well, I've learned I can put some of those things in the garden and they'll start to regenerate. So I have a good amount of scallions and chives that were some that weren't the freshest that somebody at the market gave me. So I put them in the ground, and now I just pulled out and I shared with another sister. I just shared a bunch of scallions. It was so nice when she came through on her motorcycle. Somebody else from the States, and I shared with her some mustard greens. I have sage growing. I have some fresh sage, mustard greens, sage. What else did I give? Oh, scallions, and something else that was in the garden. For that, it's such a good feeling because I'm always talking about Grandma Lou. My Grandma Lou would always chop up seasoning or make coconut bread, and she would always send it, for other women or other people in the community, and send it for my mother. And I used to be like, why did she do that? Why do they send things back and forth? Now I get it, because somebody might be growing lime or somebody might have aloe, and I was like, okay, do you need some do you need some sweet potato greens, or do you need this? I got some sugar cane, a piece of sugar cane from a neighbor. Every time I hear him out there with his hoe, that really get into gardening, and it's interesting because it's never ending, right? You have to constantly weed in this rainy season. You do all this work, you're busting a sweat, and then the weeds come right back. But it's something really gratifying about it. So I heard my neighbor in their yard, and my sister and I were wondering if it was corn growing or what the plant was growing, because it was growing so tall, and it turns out it was sugar cane. So I heard him one day harvesting the sugar cane. So not that I'm greedy or anything, but I just had to harvesting the sugar cane. He's like, "Do you want a piece?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I want a piece, right?" And then he can grow for the longest. So I'm excited. I didn't grow up in the country or in the South or in the Caribbean. So all of this stuff is like babies being born to me. So trying. I have some corn, but I need to make sure that there's enough dirt to support the corn. So we've grown some kale. We've grown curly kale and lacinato, or what they call dinosaur kale, which has the bumpy leaves. And it's grown really long, but some of the things have a stalk on them, and it gets so heavy they don't have any kind of support. Fortunately, the kale, even though it bends over, it's still been growing nice, and I can't believe it's been feeding us for a couple of months now. We just keep breaking off kale, and it still keeps regenerating. So I guess it was good seeds or something. So the kale is still giving us. So so I'm gonna venture into some corn. I just need to find a way to support it, and also some onions, because we use lots of onions. So I'm always thinking of things that may not be readily available at the market. Some things some things are very inexpensive here, like plantains and pineapple. Pineapple, I can get sometimes a small pineapple for $1, which is like 50 cents US. So that's pretty exciting. And then if I have enough space, I can take the tops of the pineapple and I can cut them off to put them back inside of the garden. Now, my son, he's pretty savvy and he's pretty adventurous in his own way. He's always riding around in the city, back in the States, looking for fruit trees. So if I was in the States, which I had started to do before I traveled, we were looking at hooking up grow lights, and I had a small space, a small apartment, but there is so much you can do. You can do in a small apartment, and I belonged to a small gardening group called um, the Village House Gardeners. Shout out to the Village House. And we were constantly researching black farmers, looking to see who was doing what in areas that were colder. And there are actually quite a few people in colder regions of the world that are actually doing a lot of vertical gardening, growing things up and down the wall. So again, I did put some links to some of the bags that I'm using to grow, like for a kit, should other people be interested in beginner gardening. And I may even, if people let me know if you're interested in the workshop, because I'm only too glad to share a lot of that information. And I always like to leave some free content on the page in case any of my family members should be watching and they are interested in what I'm up to. What am I up to now? That I like to leave a trail, because sometimes people would do certain things if somebody just showed them, where to get the supplies or how to do it. So that's garlic, scallions, onions, corn. I'm planning to put in, but I do think it needs enough of support. Pineapple. Oh, and then also some of I had a mamey seed, right? Mamey, it tastes like a sweet potato pie in a fruit. It's really delicious. I've had it a couple of times. I'm a detective, and I found it at some of the Caribbean/Korean markets in New York City. However, when the fruit is being shipped over and it's not picked when it's ripe, it doesn't. It's very expensive, and you never fully taste what it should taste like, because when the fruit is not ripe, it's very, very starchy, and the sugars haven't developed, right? They haven't matured inside of the fruit. So it's not really delicious. So I realized that quite often in the States, we're eating fruit that's not ripe. And even though it makes sense technically, a lot of the enjoyment is not there, right? Because it's not ripe. So that could apply to avocados, papaya, persimmon. When we're eating these things and they're not ripe because the sugars aren't developed, they either have tannins that make your mouth pucker up, or they're not delicious, and you don't taste all the natural perfumes and stuff, because it's like a preemie baby. It's not fully developed. So let me see, what's the other thing? So the other thing was the garden, the lox. I already showed you, like the dried rosemary that I ground up, which you can use a coffee grinder or a magic bullet or whatever you have to grind this up and make a tea for your rinses for your hair, if you want to keep it nice and light. And then the other thing was planting in the garden, which I think I touched on. So now I'm starting to see what things I took some courses before. Shout out to Brother Jay from the Village House Gardeners, and companion planting, and certain plants that you want to plant around other plants so that the bugs don't eat up your stuff. So I've learned there's so many geckos and these cute little lizards, but they will eat your stuff up. So I have learned to plant some things so they have something to eat too, so they won't eat up all my all my vegetables and all my hard work. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I get excited about being in the food prep area. Some folks think it's a bore, but I think it's so exciting. And when you really think of the fruits and vegetables, these sprouts, all these things are going to become part of my brain, my breast, my womb. They allow me to think. I wanted to grow food herbs in my house. It's winter. We live in an apartment. Did you have a problem with flying? No, actually, I didn't have any issues with insects. But again, something I just mentioned, which is a companion planting. For example, like some herbs that you can grow inside your windowsill that have those very aromatic and minty kind of oils. Those are deterrents to pests. Pests don't like rosemary oil, and they don't like thyme oil. So something you may want to look into is companion planting. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on that. I'll show you and share what I have. But companion planting keeps that stuff away. And then also, being that one of the benefits of planting inside containers, you can contain weeds, right? So if I'm growing outside, you have to weed more often. But being that you're in a container, if you're planting into containers in the States, you won't get as many weeds. So when you get an overgrowth of weeds and bush and stuff, bugs like to live on there. So that can bring different kinds of insects. But I didn't really find I had a major problem with insects. I wanted to grow some rosemary in my house so I can make a hair rinse. Yeah, rosemary, and this is super strong. So when you think of like how much money we're paying for essential oils, I'm not realistically going to buy a essential oil diffuser and things like that. Although that could be something somebody might want to do as a side hustle. But it's so potent because it's fresh. It's strong. It smells almost like peppermint oil, right? But this is rosemary, and then sometimes you might be able to find it at your co-op. and you can hang it with some twine and hang it upside down to dry. Let it dry completely, right? So you don't get any mold, anything. And you can just grind it to a powder like consistency, or as much as you can grind it down. And then you can use that for your tea, for your hair rinse. So I find it really gratifying. It's fun. It's fun to me. I really think that more people would put their hands in the soil and grow and eat better if they had folks to do it with. So you folks are welcome to come with me into my food prep area, because I'm here a lot. Either I'm in the my little teeny garden, or I'm in the food prep area. So again, Miss Jacqueline the Visionary. These are the lentil sprouts. I don't know if you can see them. These are so packed full of protein, and then also the mung bean sprouts. And this costs pennies as opposed to buying them in the store. And once you learn some really interesting ways to prepare them, they grow really, really fast. They grow quick. Yeah, so you can keep them on rotation. So that's been like a mainstay in my food for years now, right? For some years. So I do understand maybe some younger people or some folks, they're a lot more chocolate folks, a lot more folks in general on the globe, but a lot more folks are transitioning to a plant-based consumption. I really like to emphasize living foods, right? Because the body is not a graveyard, and the brain is not a graveyard. So it's really been a relief to me to eat living foods, because it really helped me not to be a junk food junkie. I was really, really a bad junk food junkie, and my skin was looking horrible. So my skin has healed from the foods, the fresh, whole, living, unprocessed plant foods that I'm eating, primarily on the inside. And then I don't even buy any products. I mean, it's amazing. I don't buy any products from the health food store, the food co-op anymore. I put the food and the pulps and the juices and things on my face. So it's a lot of fun to me. So do comment, like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. I'm constantly posting garden updates also on my Instagram page on Body-Culinary. So do check those out. More information on my freeform or semi-freeform lock journey. So I'm not twisting anything. So this has been like this for a while. So I'm just going along for the ride and letting the hair do what it does. All that time and energy I put into twisting, even though I used to love to play in my hair, that's energy now I can put into the garden. And all the products I used to buy, I don't buy any products. That stuff can all go to seeds, and can go to that. A lot of the stuff that I just stopped spending money on a long time ago went to travel. I'm truly getting away from the chemicals. Right now I'm using clarifying shampoo, but if I can make that my own, it would be even better. Well, I have to say, there are a lot of things that I've transitioned. So, for example, a lot of things that I love to eat now, I did not like back in the day. So it's been such an evolution and a growth. And one of the things that hopefully that I intend to share with folks is about 30 years of experience. It doesn't have to take you 30 years to transition your food, right? For example, when I first started out in high school, I was a junk food junkie. So a big major upgrade for me was, oh dear, your stream is frozen. Uh-oh, I'll wait, hopefully it will continue. So hopefully it's still picking up, but I was a junk food junkie, and I used to spend a whole lot of money on chips and fake bacon and canned fake soy meats back in the days, and TVP. And years later, it was a shock to me to learn that a lot of that stuff was still highly processed. So it was an upgrade for me not eating flesh. That was a whole mentality right there. But yeah, that was the big transition. So there's so much stuff that you can do with the fresh processed, unprocessed foods, living plant foods. I really have observed that it's just a matter of learning how to manipulate the fresh living ingredients to get textures that you like, and to have something that makes the food wet so it's not dry, so you have sauces and things. But it is totally possible to have to just consume fresh, whole living, unprocessed foods, and it can actually drive your food bill down, because you're not eating a whole lot of products. So do check out the website. I've put several tools there for folks that are interested. So there's Whole Living Foods in the Hood Part 1 with menus to fit your budget. So that book, it doesn't, that was my first ebook. It doesn't focus so much on recipes, but I really encourage people to shop at food co-ops or the market, or really I encourage a lot of women to find a friend or a couple of friends and shop in bulk. There was a time, although it was just me and my son, where I would shop whatever I didn't get from the food co-op, I would get from a wholesaler. So that was actually really helped me on my journey to not buying products. Because if I had all these cases of food, cases of limes, cases of sweet potatoes, cases of different types of produce, then I was like, I am not shopping. So that actually saved me a lot of time and money. And then I got really creative, just like my grandma Lou. And I took one ingredient and I did so many different things with it in order not to waste. And finally, when I had used everything from the fruit or vegetable, the rest of it went to a community garden drop off for compost. So Whole Living Foods in the Hood Part 1 has different budgets for shopping, including a bulk shop, things from $15 to 20 something dollars. There were actual shopping hauls that I did, and I give ideas, right? Once you do a shopping haul, how many different things can you make from the things that you just got from the market? Oh, okay. Okay. So what I was saying is that Whole Living Foods in the Hood, I took actual shopping trips or shopping hauls that I did to the wholesaler. That was probably around 200, but I didn't have to shop for a long time. And then I took different shopping hauls from $10 to 20 something dollars, and I give ideas for all the different things that you can prepare, menus for what you can prepare from the things that you have just purchased. And for folks that live in the fast-paced city life, quite often you have to take your lifestyle on the road with you. So that's been my specialty. I used to live out of a suitcase in the travel industry, and I feel very confident that I can eat well no matter where you drop me on the planet. And just like my grandma Lou, even though she was not a vegan or a vegetarian, she really was resourceful. And I gotta say, my grandmothers, I knew both my great grandmothers, and they were all in their 90s. And my grandma, she was 94, between 94 and 97 when she transitioned. They took one ingredient and did so many things with one ingredient. So I really I feel like I think like my grandmas, because I'm really resourceful with not wasting things. You can use the seed, you can use the peel, you can use the juices. This is a lot of what the pulps and all the skin and stuff of what I use inside my body, and on the inside and on the outside. So, and then it's also natural beauty, no products. So before my hair locked on its own, I didn't want it to lock, but it locked. So just for folks to have an alternative from cancer-causing chemicals and expensive things to drive their food bill down, I have a resource, Natural Beauty, No Products, which you can find on my website at body-culinary.com. So do follow Body-Culinary on Instagram and Twitter, and hit the notification bell, and I'll let you know, keep you updated on what's going on inside the garden with my locks and what I am growing next, and I would love to hear from you. Alrighty then, take care.